Hello and welcome to another episode of 1000 Actually Fun Books, where we are reviewing books looking for the best of fun escapist books of all genres. So today our genre is science fiction. We are reviewing the book Imperial Deserter by Andrew Moriarty. This is a book that is the first of a series. There are 7 books currently in the series. I have no idea if there are going to be more in the future, but currently each book is relatively small. On my phone Kindle, they're about 250 pages, according to Kindle counting. And so they're pretty quick reads. So let's get to the plot first. The plot seems to be surrounding a bunch of criminals. This is an anti-hero story, science fiction adventure story. So you have our anti-hero characters, and the first little bit kind of introduces all the characters. They each get a little section of them doing something criminal or running away from something, or at least giving you a hint that they are criminals in a background of some variety. Well, they all end up on this fairly beat up, derelict almost ship and run away from the Imperial Empire. They're just basically all, the thing they have in common is they all do not want to tangle with any imperial entanglements, so to speak. None of the authorities. So anyway, they all figure out that they themselves are all in the same boat, so they kind of work together. And really the story is just them going places and what adventures happen to them in those places. And adventures happen. This is one of those comedy of errors where no matter where they go, trouble follows in some variety or other. There is no real bad guy to this story. I did like that in this. So there is somebody chasing our main character, Dirk, and there are other things going on that you can consider them temporary bad guys because they are attacking or trying to steal or trying to cheat or whatever our characters. But nobody is a big overarching villain in this story. Instead, it's just their adventures as they go. And they have variety of adventures. I do like that it has a lot of changing things on what the problem is. It could be the ship itself has issues. It could be that they went to go trade with people and they have some sort of personality conflict or a political conflict or something like that. Or they are cheated by somebody and trying to get away, or they cheat somebody else and try and get away. And it just keeps going on and on and on. It's not really a shoot 'em up. It's not really a high adrenaline, although there are moments where there are high adrenaline action scenes, but it's not really about that. It's much more of an adventure. The pace is not super slow, though. This is a fast-paced story. And the thing that really makes it fun, though, is our characters. They all have very big personalities, very different, and it's interesting to watch them interact. It kind of gives you a little bit of that anti-hero things with like Wolverine or Robin Hood, or the kind of character that's, has no trouble shooting the bad guy or whoever's in their way, but kind of has a heart of gold and will help out somebody if they have the opportunity, if they really see a need, if they have some sort of loyalty to them, that kind of thing. And this group of criminals, just separate criminals, kind of band together and they get closer to each other as the story goes along, to the point where they are willing to help each other out, even if it doesn't necessarily right away benefit them. Sometimes they have to get talked into it. So like a fellow compatriot has to basically say, well, but if you don't help them, then our ride is going to be toast. And they're like, well, okay. That kind of thing. But you kind of get that impression that deep down inside, some of them really deep, but deep down inside, they are decent people, just not necessarily in the best circumstances or maybe a little bit selfish, but they do come across as likable characters in the end. With one exception I'll get to a little bit later. Okay, another thing I really like about this is the humor. This is definitely a lighthearted type of story with a humorous overtone, sometimes overtly humorous. Like they they banter back and forth, and it's amusing, and or somebody blurts out something that's funny, or the circumstances are hilarious, whatever. But the overall tone of this doesn't take itself too terribly seriously. The characters don't take the situation too terribly seriously, usually. It's not, there is no anxious, dread happening here. You don't anticipate horrible things. Instead, it's just more like, oh, they're going to have fun and they're going to get out of it. So that's that kind of story. So I'm going to read an excerpt. This is on, let's see, where is it? It is on page 7 of my Kindle phone reader. So not terribly far into the story. And our central character, I think it's going to be central throughout the rest of the series, is Dirk. And it starts out that he is in prison and somebody has come to assassinate him. So the guy just tried and failed to do something to get at Dirk. And Dirk tosses the guy's gun back at him and says, "Try again." The man didn't move. What, you can't shoot a man when he's facing you? Or do you only shoot people when they're running away? Here. Dirk jogged around his cell. I'm running! Shoot me in the back! Go ahead, shoot me! The man still didn't move. Or is it the uniform? Here, I'll take it off. Dirk stopped running, stripped his prisoner's uniform coveralls off until he stood in his underwear. Come on, I'm naked now! Naked and running! Dirk jogged around his cell. Naked and running away! Is this better? Big threat! Shoot me now! Shoot me! Shoot me in the ass! Another boom, and the smell of gunpowder erupted. Dirk stood there unscathed. He looked at the Shadow Man. You missed me. You missed me? From 2 meters away? I'm no good with my left hand, the man said. I can't control a gun with it. This is worse than getting tortured to death, Dirk said. What sort of killer are you if you can't kill a man with a revolver at 2 meters? Anyway, that kind of gives you the idea. There is no lingering, horror anticipation at this. This is all just, this is comedy, right? And that's kind of the tone of the story, of people just kind of going, well, I guess we'll do this, with, no real threat of injury or death. I liked that. It was a fun tone to this adventure. There's also no gore. People do die, but they're very minor side characters that, show up for like 2 pages kind of thing. And when they do die, it's like, oh, this guy is shot in the intestines. He's gonna die. And then you look and he's dead. That level of gore. Nothing grotesque, nothing, stomach churning. It's just, somebody died in a shootout kind of thing. Over there, some soldier, whatever. So that's nice. The ending of this book is right on the verge of whether I like it or not. It was a pretty good ending in that the immediate situation is resolved. The characters are banding together, trying to get someplace, and then when there's a struggle, they overcome that somehow, and you kind of see them riding off into the sunset, in space, not really, metaphorically speaking, riding off into the sunset to go run away some more. But it's on the verge of not being satisfying because there are a lot of loose threads. You kind of get the backstory of Dirk because it's centered around him. Why is he running away? In the end, you kind of get a bigger overview of what actually went down and understand why various people are, either threatening him or, why you would be on his side, that kind of thing. But you don't get it for the other characters. There's a lot of questions about our side characters, not side characters, our other main characters, our companion characters. There are 4 or 5 characters that travel with Dirk, and that there's a lot going on behind the scenes with them, but only one other character that you kind of discover along the way and find out what that backstory is. Do you really get a sense of their motive and what's going on behind that? Instead, you just have a whole bunch of questions, which presumably will be resolved in the rest of the story, but you don't get that resolved here. So that's why the ending is just, It is enough of a cliffhanger. I mean, I really want to read the next book. I'm going to read the next book. But it doesn't, but you could end here and walk away from the series and still feel like you had a satisfying story. It had enough of an ending to make it worth your while to say, yes, it was the end of the story, but not so much that you really want to end it there. This one I got on Kindle from the Kindle Unlimited, so it was a free rental, buy, whatever you want to call it. And I will have a link down below if you wanted to try it. So things I disliked. There aren't many, but there are a couple. One is one of our characters. This is the Centurion. So he is really obnoxious, deliberately offensive at the beginning of the book when you first are introduced to him as he first comes on, and for most of the way through the book. It's at least halfway. And then he is persuaded to not be as verbally offensive. Like, politeness is enforced on this ship at that point. And so because he is no longer allowed, we'll say, to be as obnoxious verbally as he has been in the past, he becomes a better character. You're not as irritated by him as you read along. But it is still underlying. Like, he calls one character a freak deliberately for a huge chunk of the book. Then he stops, but every once in a while it comes back up. Hey, freak. You know, that kind of thing. And it's just not thrilling to have that there. You kind of get the impression that by the end of the book, he respects that character that he's name-calling, and another character that he has problems with, and other characters that he doesn't respect and stuff, enough to not be as rude, or, you know, that he's improved his impression, maybe improved a little bit of his personality, maybe a little bit character growth there, enough that it's not this big of a deal. And I think in future books it would not be as big of a problem. But in this one, it was kind of, especially for the first half of the book, kind of, There's a fairly loose view of sex in this. Like, for example, one character flat out says, yeah, before I get married, I need to have sex with 10 men. And I didn't appreciate that. I would consider that written by a man, a man's point of view, to think that that's a great thing. And that was not appealing to me. The view of sex on this was very loose, very liberal, not to my flavor. The last thing I will say is a poor writing example. So the author repeats himself a few times, at least 3 or 4 times in this, in a way that comes across as the author forgot that he told the reader this, not as a case of the author is reminding the reader of something. So I'll give you an example. The ship that they're on, at the very beginning, Dirk is told that the ship had been in dock 3 days and he needs to get on the ship. When he's on the ship, the person that is currently on the ship tells him, oh no, the ship has been in dock 6 months. Okay, fine. And then a little bit later, Dirk, the main character, says, so the ship has been in dock 3 days, and the same character from before pipes up and says, oh no, the ship has been in dock 6 months, and then goes off and tells you more about it. Okay, it comes across not as the author is trying to remind you, the reader, of a tidbit trivia thing that he threw away comment earlier, but rather it comes across as the author forgot that this plot point has already been addressed. And he does that a couple of times. This isn't just a one-time thing. And that to me is a poor writing, poor editing. They could have, because if they had redone that little, for example, a different character had come up and said, oh, wasn't this ship in dock for only 3 days? And then they discuss it. That would not have come across as repetition. If the main character who had heard that the ship had been in dock in 6 months had said, well, at first I heard it was 3 days, but you're telling me it was 6 months? What's up with that? You know, if he'd said something like that, see how it could have been reworded in such a way that it is reminding the reader of what we said. But instead it comes across as the main character has never heard this information before, which that says the author forgot that you've already said that. So those are a couple things. That was probably the main bad thing about this I didn't like, was that couple of instances of repetition, because it was very jarring. You're like, wait, we were already told this. Why are you acting like this is new information? The characters should know this already. That kind of thing. I do recommend it. I give it 2 thumbs up. I really enjoyed this. The adventure was fantastic. It was a lot of fun to just romp through space with these eclectic group of weirdos. They had fun and I had fun. So I would totally read it. I would recommend it. All right, well, thank you for watching, and I hope you watch next time.